All right, great. Welcome to all of you who are joining us today. We're so glad that you're here for the Prehealth Advising webinar for our summer transition series. My name is Dalton Dye. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm an assistant director of new student and family programs here at Duke University. We're thrilled that you've taken some time out of your day to join us for this webinar. If you've been a part of our summer transition series webinars before, welcome back. If this is your first time joining us, just some background and context. We host weekly webinars throughout the summer to get important information directly from the experts on campus to new students. All of our webinars are recorded, so you can either go to our new student family programs website or our YouTube page to review past content, as well as register for future ones. So today we've invited some pre-health advisors here to answer specific questions and share insight about the pre-health process and what to expect on campus this fall from their offices. Before I turn it over to them, I just wanted to give you all a heads up that we'll be recording this webinar and posting it online after we're finished. You'll also see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A button. This is your way of asking questions directly to the panelists. So as the presentation is going on, feel free to drop a question in there if you have something. At the end of our webinar, we'll have some Q&A time to answer those questions as best we can. And if your question isn't answered, we'll also have some time about who you can reach out to afterwards to get those questions answered. So without further ado, I guess I'll turn it over to Alyssa and Brittany to introduce themselves. And then I believe they have a presentation to walk through and we'll get into the content. So Alyssa, I'll hand it off to you.
All right, we're really glad to be here this afternoon and thank our colleagues in New Student Programs for having us. My name is Alyssa Pers. I'm a Senior Associate Dean in Trinity College, lecturer in biology, and I'm here today because I direct the Office of Health Professions Advising. I'm joined by my colleague, Brittany Moorhack. She's the Associate Director of the office. And our focus today is really about helping you get some registration guidance in the context of being pre-health students. So thanks for coming along. The first thing I want to do is introduce our entire team. We are a team of 7 folks who offer advising for pre-health students on campus. We'll be pushing out lots of events from the beginning here, and you'll have opportunities to meet all the members of our team. Our mission is to partner with undergraduate students and alumni from both Pratt and Trinity colleges who are interested in the health professions. Want to underscore the fact that while we're starting to work with you as you're coming in the door to Duke, whatever your pathway, we will continue to work with you as alumni if that's what's needed. So don't feel like you've got to rush through pre-health because you've got a time-limited relationship with us. We know the realities will require more time. We empower each advisee to be both their best authentic self as a person and a future health professional. And you'll see this when we talk about classes. It's really important to us that you not pass through Duke and become a health profession on the other side, but that you get the best out of Duke, because that will actually help you in your future career and also make you more competitive applicants when it's time to apply for the next thing. So thanks for being here to help us get started on that. As an office, we will work with a variety of different student pathways. These are the primary professions that we'll advise for, but every couple of years we add something else to this slide because we have a student that's interested in. I really want to underscore that among your peers, you'll find that most pre-health students are interested in going into medical school. That doesn't mean that what you want to do isn't important or there isn't a pathway. Pre-med is very prominent and visible, but we've got advising resources for the other health professions as well. I particularly want to call your attention to dentistry, veterinary, and physical therapy. These are health professions for which we do offer advising, but the advising gateway is through a student organization. So look for the Duke Groups Fair that will happen right after classes start. Find those organizations, sign up if you're interested in any of these professions. If you're interested in other things and it's not obvious to you how you get started with advising, contact our office at prehealth@duke.edu, and we'll point the way forward. One of the best ways to learn about our advising resources, stay in touch with us, is to use the QR code on the left to register your pre-health interest. This is not binding. We're not going to force you to become a doctor at the end of your time at Duke. Really will do nothing more than give you regular communications from us. We are an opt-in advising resource, but folks that are pursuing these professions should really treat us not as optional. You really need to work with us. And as soon as you have some sense that you want to be on one of these pathways, work with our office to get advice about courses and experiences. We also have an Instagram account and encourage you to follow us on that as well at Duke_HPA. All right, our agenda for this afternoon, as I mentioned, is really going to be focused on registration for your fall classes. We'll talk a little bit about preparing for a health career and the courses involved there. We'll talk about planning courses specifically for the fall, encourage you to make empowered choices, offer some tips for success. We'll provide some sample schedules, and then hope to leave lots of time for your questions because we know you have a lot of those. Preparing for a health career, from our perspective, is a combination of a set of courses that are required by the professional school, and if they have a content-based standardized test, the courses will also be included to cover that preparation. But just as important are a set of experiences. Great grades and tests may have gotten your parents and other folks into a school like medical school, but that is no longer the case. Those things need to be coupled with really robust experiences, some of which are really designed to help you confirm the profession is the right thing for you. So rather than looking at it, what do they want from me? Look at it as from the perspective of what do I need to do to know that I'm ready and prepared to do this profession. Those two things in combination can't be treated as cannot be treated like a checklist. I got the courses, I got the experience, check, 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 I'm good. You really have to focus on the quality of those experiences and the meaning you make from them in order to develop competencies that schools are looking for. The American Association of Medical Colleges has probably the best articulated set of competencies of all the professions, but if you look at those, you'll also see how universal they are to all professionals going into health careers. Probably some minor tweaks, profession by profession, but they're a really good starting place for all students. So the courses and experiences, you might view them as requirements, but we really want you to shift away from this is required by them, they're doing it to me, to really seeing them as choices and opportunities for you to become that best authentic self we talked about in our mission statement. So if you can find the choices and the opportunities and see the things that you need to do in order to prepare and be competitive, largely through a choice lens, you will be much happier while you're at Duke, and you'll be much more prepared and to develop those competencies and then more competitive when you apply. All right, in thinking about courses for fall, I think it's really easy to see things as wanting, a lot of students will come to us and they only want to meet requirements and they feel very rushed and in a hurry. We really want to deconstruct that framework now. And I want to use this Escher tessellation sort of as an analogy for thinking about this. Now, when you first see this image, you might notice angels, you might notice the bats first, but we don't get angels or bats without the other one there creating the outlines. So you won't have a great undergraduate experience if you only focus on requirements and just getting those out of the way early. take some requirements, but also take some opportunities to explore, especially those of you in Trinity. You've got a lot of latitude to meet graduation requirements. No major is required for medical schools or other health professions. So you really have a lot of choice there, and we want you to feel empowered to use it. So now I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Moorhack to talk a little bit more about classes.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to build on the choice idea that Dean Pers has been talking about. But the first thing we're going to talk about is these little symbols you're going to see on the next couple of slides. We know that there are some frameworks or guardrails around some of your choices for your first semester. So when we talk about the course choices that you have coming up, you're going to see this little green head for Trinity requirements. What do you need to choose to help you get closer to graduation if you are a Trinity student? If you're a Pratt student, that's going to be sort of highlighted with this little yellow head with the gears in it. And then anything that's pre-health related is going to have the stethoscope. And I think what we're hoping you're going to see is how often these two things overlap, particularly in your first semester. You have very little foundational courses that already count towards graduation. Most of you will come in with only a handful or may not come in with any. So everything you do in your first semester is going to take you one step closer to graduation and one step closer to your pre-health requirements. Next slide. Bear with us with tech. It's great until it doesn't work all. There we go. So what do you get to do with your choices? If you are preparing to enter Trinity, you're going to be thinking about which language you might want to explore. You might want to explore a major topic or try an elective, something you've never tried before. As Dean Pers mentioned earlier, there is no pre-health or pre-med major. We send folks to all sorts of pre-health or health professional programs with every type of major under the sun. You may want to consider the different class sizes you're looking at. Make sure you have a few classes that are medium-sized or small classes. A lot of your foundational pre-health courses might be larger, so that counterbalance provides lots of different options for learning about how you learn best at Duke. And really just taking classes that you've never considered or had access to before. There's a lot of topics at Duke that you might not get another chance to explore, so take that on when you can. On the Pratt side, you'll be told whether you're taking Writing 101 or some of your other Pratt courses first. And so we'll obviously start with what Pratt is sharing with you about where you're going to start. You'll have choices within your social sciences and your humanities that are going to line up nicely as well with your pre-health requirements. So you might look for English and writing coded courses so that that helps you maximize your choices within your Pratt experience. Same thing for Pratt students. We're looking for varying the size of the classes. So you have different learning environments and experiences and still considering a topic you've never been exposed to before. That's the fun of college. And I think what we hear a lot from upperclassmen on their way out at graduation is there was this one class they took at some point they really enjoyed and didn't feel like it was strongly connected to any one thing for them, but it made them think differently, see the world differently. And that's what we hope each of you will consider doing either in your first semester or definitely as you're moving through your time at Duke. We do have a little disclaimer on the bottom. You're going to hear us say for the next several years, it depends as our answer to a lot of different questions. And the first thing to consider is that all of you are coming from very different states and places in, across the world. Where you think you might be matriculating to medical school specifically or a different health professions program, you're going to want to pay a lot of attention to your state schools and see if they have any unique requirements that you might be looking to engage with during your time at Duke. Next slide. We want you to be successful from when you get here until you matriculate to your next program. So we want to think about some tips that will help you find that success here at Duke, particularly in your first semester. So the first thing we've kind of touched on already is don't have all of your classes be the same size if you can. There are lots of things you learn about yourself as a learner in large groups and small groups, and having both will allow you to learn different things and grow in different ways. So instead, look for classes that are medium, small, and large so that you can explore those learning styles. It also helps you develop relationships with faculty. Students students who are engaged with faculty feel more comfortable and confident in their learning. And we also know down the line that you will likely need to ask some of these folks for letters of recommendation because of the pathway you're on. And talking with faculty as you're going throughout your time at Duke will help make that a little bit easier. We don't want you to have all of one topic or one type of course. So coming in and only registering for science courses with a lab, or all social science courses, or all humanities courses is going to mean that you're a little bit in one area the whole time. And so instead, if you're thinking about that diversification, you'll get to use lots of different sides of your brain, and you'll get to do a little bit of exploring in addition to thinking about your requirements for graduation. We also don't, if you're on Trinity side, we really strongly encourage you not to take more than 2 courses with a lab for your first semester. You have never been a Duke student before, regardless of where you're coming from. So making sure that you give yourself enough balance in your schedule. Labs can take up a lot of time. And so we really want you to think about 2 classes with a lab at most, and really partnering that with 2 classes that are very different from a workload perspective. Building on that, we also want to think about the workload. So even if a course doesn't have a lab associated, if it has a high volume of workload associated with it, you might want to think about diversifying that. So you're using different assessment styles, and you're also balancing your course load across the whole 4 classes. We also want to make sure you have room for that whole person we talked about when you started. We want you to feel like you can meet friends while you're on campus and do things that are social, have co-curricular experiences, extracurricular experiences. All those things are really important in becoming a valued member of our community at Duke, and we want to make sure you have time and space for all of that. Next slide. So for those who are entering Trinity, these were going to be sort of the choices that we're looking at for your first semester. So if you're coming in and you're going to be choosing all 4 courses, these are the most common first choices that students are going to make. So the first is that most of our pre-health students will start with chemistry in some capacity. It is the longest sequence that you'll be thinking about moving through during your time at Duke. So getting started with this is always a good idea. We cannot stress enough, please use the placement guides. We promise that the departments are doing a great job in helping you find the first step, and choosing those placements based on your experience is going to help you be successful, not just in that course, but in the sequence and in your long-term growth at Duke. So as you'll see, chemistry particularly is one of those courses that helps you with both. It's going to be a pre-health requirement. It's also going to help you take a step forward in your Trinity requirements. Next is if you're coming in without math credit, you're going to be thinking about taking a calculus course. So again, using your placement for math to make the choice that's right for your educational background is really important. These courses are a little bit medium, large in size, depending on what you choose. And then half of you will be taking Writing 101, and the other half of you will be taking a seminar course. Fun fact that most first years don't recognize all the time is Writing 101 is actually a pre-health requirement. Most pre-health programs are going to require you take English or a writing course, and your Writing 101 is going to help you fulfill that requirement early on. Whoops, everything went away, including Dean Purse. Okay, we're just going to pivot. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like she dropped off the call. So maybe some tech issues again. But
I'm going to assume, I'm also going to mention, I don't know if all of you or any of you in Durham, I just heard a loud clap of thunder. So I'm wondering if we are physically in different spaces, if that went down. Okay, just give me 2 seconds. So sorry. I didn't have the PowerPoint open.
that's all good. Oh,
Nope, she's
looks-
back. Oh, Dean Purse, do you want to share or do you want me to share? And you're still muted. While we're looking at that,
to say, while we get the PowerPoint pulled back up. Oh, maybe. Great. Okay, never
here we
mind.
go. Dean Purse is a pro at this. Okay, so as we were talking, half of you will be taking Writing 101, half of you will be taking a seminar. Those are small courses, a really good experience. Oh, can you go back one slide, DNP, for me? Good experiences for making sure that you have lots of different variety. And so that leaves you with a choice for your fourth course. It does not need to be something that you feel is directly tied to pre-health. We hope this is the course you're going to do something like explore a potential major with, or take the course you've never considered taking, stretch yourself in a new way. Some folks might decide to take the language here, lots and lots of different options. And this is a great conversation to have with your college advisor as you're looking at the big picture of what your academic interests are. If you're doing a focus course, we're going to have very similar ideas of starting with chem, starting with math, using your placements to do that. And then those other two courses, you'll be fulfilling your focus engagement. And so that'll be your seminar course. And then you'll be taking Writing 101 in the spring. And so you have a lovely way to start with a nice community, lots of different variety in the size of your courses already sort of baked into that decision. All right, next slide, DP. All right, so if you are intending to start Duke as a Pratt student, we are going to see similar things. You're going to start with that chemistry. Again, we're looking at your placement. That's going to help both in your engineering courses and in your pre-health coursework. Same thing with math. You want to follow your placement, follow the guidance coming from Pratt and other sources to make sure that you are starting where you need to be successful in both spaces. If you are starting with Writing 101 in the fall, you'll take that and then you'll partner that with your EGR course. And so you'll see there's also for engineers already this lovely variety in class size. And most of those courses are also going to be doing sort of that dual growth in your preparation for Pratt and for pre-health. If you are not taking Writing 101 and you are a Pratt student, you'll be doing the chem and the math, again, leaning into that placement guide. You'll be doing your digital computation course and your EGR 101 or 103. All right, next slide. So we know that you are enjoying your summer, or at least we hope you are, and soaking up some time at home and doing fun things. But if you're starting to think a little bit more seriously, and I'm guessing if you're on this call, you already are, about what you can do to prepare at your time for Duke, we've got some ideas for pre-health. Starting with register for classes. You're going to work with your college advisor to think about the big picture about which 4 courses are most going to set you up for success for your goals. The second thing we want you to do is register for HPA. We will put that QR code up one more time for you. We also want you to spend some time reviewing our website, and we will start with some disclaimers around our website. We know that there's a lot of information, but we have an awesome section called Prepare, and those are for students who are getting ready to start at Duke, kind of looking at the big picture. So if you are up at 1 a.m. and you're wondering what does experiences look like for pre-health students, or what does it look like to have community service involved in my preparation, I'm pretty sure DMP and I may or may not be up at that hour, but we're definitely not answering emails at that hour. And our website can answer that question for you. So take some time, take a look. It's always a great resource to start with if you have a question, to see if there's some information already available for you to get your question answered. We also want you to spend some time reflecting on why you've chosen Duke. Most of you talk with us so much in Blue Devil days and when you get started about what drew you to Duke, what made you choose coming to our community. Don't lose sight of that and have a really good sense of what that is, because it can help guide your choices. If you were really excited about Duke Engage, we want you to find space for Duke Engage as a pre-health student. If you were really excited about our study abroad experiences, we want you to be able to fit those in. So knowing why you chose Duke will help you make some choices as you kind of continue during your time at Duke as well. And lastly, we want you to prep to treat this like a marathon. Most of our pre-health students who go to graduate programs in health professions will be with us somewhere between 4 and 6 years. We're going to do a lot of living life together, friends. I've done a pandemic with a bunch of folks. We've done lots of things together. We want you to pace yourself now, because this is not something that you'll be ready for your program tomorrow. And we want you to feel like you're prepared for those years of preparation alongside of us. We want you to take your time. We find that when students take their time and their choices and adding their experiences, they enjoy them more, they grow from them more, and then that turns into a stronger candidacy and readiness for their professional program. They just feel like more whole people at the end of their time at Duke, which is really, really important to us as well. Next slide. All right, where can you find us? Dean P and I are just not going to show up this one time and disappear. Our group and our team will be available in the coming weeks and months as you transition to Duke. So the first two experiences is we'll be offering 2 Zoom drop-ins for registration advising. The first one being this Friday from 12 to 3, and then another one the following week on July 30th from 2 to 5. You can also meet your HPA advisor. We will all be around ideally on August 23rd from 1:30 to 4:30. You can pop in, meet all of us who support pre-health students at Duke. And then we will be offering 3 welcome events the first week of classes. These will all be the same, so you only need to attend one, but this will be an introduction a little bit more globally than what we're talking today about health professions advising at Duke and what you can kind of expect and the experiences and things of that nature. Next slide. All right, so before we open the doors for questions, I do want to point out the QR code is here again to register with HPA. You do not need to be 100% certain that you are going to be considering pre-health or on that pathway, but if you are thinking about it now, please sign up. And then one final reminder that building a strong road happens brick by brick. We want you to focus on your direction, not your destination. Dean P and I both have been doing this a long time, and I don't think either of us feel like we could predict what each one of you will end up in 4 to 6 years. And that's what is so exciting about your time at Duke is courses and people and experiences are going to change you, and you're going to grow and learn new things. And all of that will help us make the next brick placement right. So we want you really focused on the fall, and what do you learn from the fall will help us make decisions for the spring, and the spring will help us make decisions for the summer. And it's just going to go one brick at a time. That's going to help you be the most successful and feel like a whole person at the end of it. So we're going to turn it over for questions, unless Dean P has anything the last minute to add. Nope. All right.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much. It was very helpful information. We've had some questions start pouring in through the chat, so I think we'll start taking a look at those. And then just as a reminder, everybody who's in attendance, the Q&A button at the bottom is how you can submit your question, and we'll just start rolling through those. So I think the first question that I see here is around study or work abroad opportunities, and this might be better suited for the Global Education Office, but are you all aware of opportunities where a student could combine their interest in medicine with fluency in a different language?
Absolutely. I think probably one of Duke's most popular study abroad programs is in Copenhagen, Denmark, and is very explicitly pre-health. The same organization's got great sites in Stockholm, Sweden. A lot of our natural science majors will study in English-speaking countries to study neuroscience or biodiversity. So our students get abroad. They can take language. Some of our Spanish professors have summer programs in countries like Costa Rica for both pre-health as well as engineering. So definitely check out what Global Education has to offer. I think the biggest difference between pre-health students and students who study abroad at Duke who are not pre-health is you got to plan early for pre-health. You do not want to take any of your pre-health requirements in another country. You want to do those domestically. So that means major Trinity requirements, other kinds of things are what you'll focus on in those countries. But there are plenty of opportunities to have health-based experiences or just purely culturally based experiences. So check them out.
Great, thank you. The next question is I'm going to combine a little bit, and that's more around the requirements of pre-health. And in particular, do you have to have 2 semesters of Orgo? And in general with the curriculum, how much room is there for electives while also being a pre-health student?
Great question. So most of our health professions pathways are going to ask you to take 2 semesters of organic with lab. When we talk about prereqs and which courses you need to take, there's kind of 3 different buckets to consider. The first is which courses must you take and earn a grade for at the collegiate level to be able to matriculate to your program. The second is what content do you need to prepare for whatever standardized tests you'll be taking? So if you're planning to apply to medical school, what's on the MCAT? And then the third is, are there any courses you have to take to get to either of those other courses? And so while our overarching answer is going to be, it depends, like, could you potentially find a pathway where you didn't need inorganic or organic 2 at one school Maybe, but most of our students are going to find that they need both semesters of organic chemistry with lab to be able to go on to biochemistry and fulfill those requirements in other spaces. How much space you have for electives depends on a few different factors. One, your state schools, what are you looking at? What's your pathway? How many courses do you have to take? What does your major and your other choices look like? So are you having multiple programs, like, or do you also have a minor, and how do those all fit together? I would say generally speaking, there's a lot of options for choices, and you can make choices where you feel like you have a lot of space to grow and take courses that you're really interested in as a pre-health student. Just similar to studying abroad, like Dean P said, it's going to take a lot of planning, and you just kind of have to have that big picture idea and your values and priorities set. And some of that also, as you alluded to, might connect at your AP credits. Some programs and some schools accept AP credit and some do not. So depending on the AP credit you're coming in to Duke with and the programs you're looking at, having AP credit might mean that you get an extra elective somewhere along the line because you fulfilled a requirement through an AP course, and others may not. We talk about requirements as a whole realistic fiction. You can look at them today and have a good sense of what you think you might need now. And I can pretty much guarantee by the time you graduate, some medical school, some PA program will have changed their requirements, and you'll pick stuff up along the way. So you'll hear us regularly say to you every year, you should be checking your requirements for the programs of interest for you. And kind of making tweaks along the way.
Great, thank you for that. This kind of touches on the prescribed, not the prescribed, but some of the course options for students, in particular with the focus cluster. Should a science-based focused cluster still take chem class in the fall, or should it be a spring semester course?
I think it's probably what I would do is contact the professors teaching my classes and just get a sense of what's the work going to be like. It's very rare that a focus cluster is going to give you high stakes tests. You're probably going to write papers, have debates, engage in conversation and ideas, and really getting a sense of, is adding a chemistry class a lot on top of that. It does create some imbalance STEM-wise, but if you hear we're really going to be engaging with the social implications of genomics research rather than the nitty-gritty biological details of genomics, that may help you feel more comfortable about taking a chemistry class on top of that. Dalton, can I also address the question about, I hear that focus is bad for pre-health students, and
Yeah.
I just want to say we are 100% gung-ho for focus. This is an opportunity that only a fraction of our incoming students are able to do. If we could afford it and find a way to do it, all of our students would probably do something like that. In fact, our new curriculum is heading in that direction. So please don't give up your focus cluster. That is one of the ways we see our students individuating when they apply. I see so many majors, minors, certificates come out of focus. You're in a community that's intellectually based, it's residentially based, it's got social implications as well as enrichment, like field trips, getting to know 2 faculty members in your first semester. It's going to make it easier to get recommendations for summer programs. Those recommendations will be due early the next semester. So please don't listen to those folks that say focus is not, it's not helpful. It's exactly the kind of thing we wrapped this presentation around. It is a high impact experience that really can influence your trajectory in positive ways, even if it doesn't feel like concretely I'm checking off pre-health classes in the process. You are gaining life experience and really valuable relationships and connections that we cannot understate the value of those in your first semester.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for the focus plug. We really appreciate that. I know we talked a little bit about the experiences being a big part of the calculus between courses, experiences, and competencies. And I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit more about any research or community opportunities offered at Duke for pre-health students, or maybe things that you know that's like some common pathways students might follow to get involved in that way.
Yeah. So I think this kind of goes back to us encouraging you to think about why you came to Duke. If research is of something of interest, we have lots of different opportunities for research at Duke. And there are a lot of different resources on campus for learning about those, but things like Muser or Bass Connections are wonderful places to get started. We don't see a lot of students starting in their first semester or even first year in research, and it is okay if you don't start in your first year. You don't need to. I think where we see our first year starting the most is with community engagement. So volunteering in the Durham community and spending time in organizations at Duke, going through to the Duke Group Fair, where you can learn about the different organizations, where you might find community and build leadership and teamwork skills. All of those things will be important to help you build the competencies that we talked about. We will talk as you spend some more time with our team about what do health professions programs look for when it comes from experiences. But I think what we really want to underscore for your first semester is the most successful thing that you can do to get yourself started in a good way is to come and transition to being a Duke student, finding your space in your way in your classrooms, finding a couple of organizations that feel manageable with your time, where you can build community and serve our community as a whole will help you feel a little bit more settled and balanced. And then you can kind of start to make decisions on top of that. But we do have lots of research experiences, opportunities at Duke, and then also other things like patient engagement are available in our wider Duke community.
Great. This one is definitely casting our ahead of several years now, so feel free to pass over it. But thinking about gap year specifically, do you know anything about the amount of students, pre-health students at Duke who take a gap year before med school applications? If we're absolutely sure we won't apply for med school, is that something we should be thinking about?
Thank you. I love that question because 80% of our students will wind up taking a gap year. If I had to guess with our audience here, 80% of you are not planning on taking a gap year. So I like to say that gap years are made over time. So I'd like to begin talking about the virtues of them. I don't expect to sell anybody who's committed to not taking a gap year on it, but want to underscore it as the normal thing now. Again, if we've got parents in the audience who are physicians, this was not the normal thing when they were going to medical school. So this is very different. And this is not, it used to be that if there was something wrong with you as an applicant, you took a gap year to fix things. Nowadays, gap years are really things that are only going to make you more competitive because you will have more classes, more experiences in your application. If you take one, you'll have more time to do the interesting, enriching things at Duke. So you don't have to compromise on those things and apply to medical school. So we have got every fall, we will do a panel of folks that took a gap year and what they did. So you'll get a sense of the variety. But just to give a short list of what students do, they'll engage in everything from basic, translational, or clinical research. They'll go and work with patients in entry-level physicians like scribing or working with a certification or as a medical assistant. Sometimes students can blend research and those kinds of things together. Other students will go out and do service-oriented things like Teach for America, Peace Corps, or AmeriCorps. Those other two things are 2-year commitments, so AmeriCorps is a little bit more digestible. So you get the idea that students do a lot of things. We're not as keen for students to go out and get, say, a master's degree or something just for the sake of killing some time. Those things tend to not make you more competitive. But if you've always wanted a master's in public health or your grades weren't great in undergrad, you could do a master's post-bac. So it is a highly individualized process. We tend to talk about gap years when students are feeling really stressed or they're going to give up study abroad in order to take the MCAT and apply as a junior. We are seeing, while our juniors are sometimes our best applicants, we're also seeing juniors having a harder time competing with folks. Patient engagement experience is the thing that's exploded since the pandemic. And, having that extra time to do it can be really valuable for competition. After students taking 1 gap year, our biggest growing population are students taking 2 gap years. So if that shows you anything about the direction things are heading, unfortunately for folks that really want to avoid one, we'll support you. We'll talk about what it will take, but we're also going to pull out the gap year as an option when it gives us some flexibility.
On a similar note, and this question was more if I apply year 1 and I don't get accepted into med school and want to reapply, what support exists from Duke if you're no longer an actively enrolled student? And I feel like that kind of segues off of the gap year question pretty well. So maybe you could expand upon that one a little bit.
Yeah, I love answering this question because I think we're really blessed to be able to say we advise students 5 years post-graduation. We want you to choose the path that's right for you. So if that's 2 gap years, like we're still going to be here. If that's 3 gap years, we're still going to be here. It also means that if you apply as a junior or a senior and you're not successful in your first cycle, we're still here. I like to joke with my upperclassmen, I do what I like to call white coat advising. Like until you put the white coat in, like I'm all in until we do that, whatever kind of looks like for you. So we do support a large volume of alumni. Zoom existed for our office way pre-pandemic because we've been serving alumni all over the country and world in their gap years since pre-pandemic times. So for us, it doesn't feel like a stretch or anything new. It's things we were always doing. And we really want to be able to support your choice.
All right, great. There's a couple questions in here around majors, and I know we talked about it a little bit. So maybe just reemphasizing, what does it mean to be a biology major in pre-med? What about the math track? I think there was another one around global health. Like, what types of things are you seeing from students from a wide variety of majors, and how has that impacted their pre-health experience?
Yeah, so I think there are some obvious majors that overlap really well with pre-health. Biology is one of them. We have a major in evolutionary anthropology that I encourage folks to check out, especially if you like primates, organismal level, biomechanics. It's very focused there. We have a lot of chemistry majors, neuroscience, and then, probably psychology is well represented among those. But just because there's a lot of them doesn't mean you should become that. I think a lot of people wanting to go into health are really curious about the natural sciences, so it makes sense that a lot of them go that route. I like to describe that it's also legitimate to major in something completely different, especially if you're in Trinity, a major that complements the sciences of the pre-health coursework and can sometimes make it a really efficient, well-balanced way to meet your graduation requirements if you're only doing 2 science classes a semester rather than 3, 4 like you do in a major. It can be a great way to just use your brain. All those things we're telling you to do in your first semester, you get to do over 4 years, and it can be really valuable. We've got great medical humanities at Duke. Our sociology major has a whole minor in medical sociology. So there are ways to understand the social or humanistic or artistic aspects of health through a variety of majors. There's probably a third set of majors that are a little more challenging because they don't overlap really well with the pre-health requirements, they don't complement really well, and yet a really tenacious, determined student can major in math or computer science or economics. But what we encourage you to really think about with your major is, what's the point of intersection with my profession? Am I doing this because I think schools will be impressed that I'm doing something really hard? That's not a reason to pursue a particular type of major. But if you see mathematical applications to health problems or research, or this is really where you want to spend those 10 credits in a major, then go do it. It's probably going to cost you some electives on the other side. So that's what you always have to think about, whether it's a double major or a co-major or a major that doesn't complement. But if it's where you're going to be happiest and can contribute to the world of ideas very well, certainly a math major will be a unique proposition going into medicine. So there can be lots of advantages, but it's got to be authentically you and your best self, and you got to want to be in those classes. And then I think selling the points of connection, also make it easier to do things like the research and get some credit toward your major while gaining experience in health.
Great. Thanks for that additional information there, Alyssa. I appreciate that. A couple questions here around class registration. And specifically, if I don't get into the chem or math class that I want to upon registration, what should I do besides panic? So we want to avoid panic as much as possible, but will it put me behind? Like, what does that mean for the rest of my semesters here at Duke?
Yeah, great question. Cannot underscore enough. Don't panic. Don't panic is almost always the right response. I think the second next best response is contact someone. So your college advisor, if you haven't devised a backup plan, they're a great resource. It's not going to put you behind, right? I don't think there are a lot of choices a first year can make that are going to put them so far behind that we're going to really struggle. It just means it's a different path, right? So I think chemistry can feel a little bit like, oh no, I didn't take it, but it's okay. There's lots of different choices we can make along the way. I think finding 4 courses you're excited about for your first year. So if you can't get into chemistry or math, make the choice that makes sense for all your other interests. And in the next semester, we can sort of figure out what do we add in next now, or how do we add in chemistry then the next semester to make sure. And also, I don't know, DP may or may not have a different experience. Like, I don't hear a ton of students not being able to get into like those courses. And so hopefully to sort of maybe reduce the stress around that, like, unless you have a really strict schedule for other reasons, I think most of our first years are able to get into those types of courses. Sound fair?
Yeah, chemistry especially. Math is a little bit harder because their sections are smaller, but and math doesn't also add people to classes after the first week. So going to classes, even if you're not enrolled, introduce yourself to the professor, explain why you're there, that you'd like to get in or you're on the waiting list, can be really helpful for sorting some of those things out. I put up our slide of where you can find us. So depending on when you figure this out, come. There's welcome events we intentionally do during drop ad. We're going to be available at the end of O week that we can help advise. I want to add to what Ms. Moorheck said and just remind you that every department has got a director of undergraduate studies, or in the case of languages, a language program director. That's often a first person to contact. You know, I'm in biology. Sometimes our classes fill up. It's really helpful to let undergraduate studies office know, I'd really like to join. They will open up extra sections if they can in labs, and chemistry in particular is good about that. So letting somebody know what you're looking for, but then also be flexible. You can't not want the Friday afternoon lab. You know, if you don't have conflicts, they're going to ask you to go into maybe something that feels less optimal for you, but usually that doesn't happen. Also want to reiterate for people who are thinking about not taking any pre-health classes in your first semester, that is okay too. So if you fall into that yourself, we usually can advise on alternatives if these other things don't work.
And can you also just clarify the purpose behind the Zoom drop-ins that you're hosting? So I guess 2 questions. Like, one, is this just a way for us to go over our courses with a pre-health advisor, or what's happening during those drop-in hours? And then 2, how does the student find the link to those drop-in hours?
Register with our office, and I've already sent those links out twice at least. So you either haven't let Duke know you're interested in pre-health as a pathway in your first year questions, or you have not registered with us. So definitely register with us. That'll put you on the list for those. These I'm calling group drop-ins. So we're not gonna be able to, we'll let anybody who shows up in. They're covering 3 hours at a time. So we should have time to do individual stuff, but not a lot of private conversations. Hopefully at this point, there's not a lot to be private about. Our drop-ins during the school year tend to be with a waiting room. So we just talk one-on-one, but these will be group drop-ins. And they're exactly, I don't know what to do with my AP credit. What are health professions schools going to do? I'm trying to make this decision. So we'll advise students in groups, trying to mop up whatever we don't get covered today.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. This is a question I think about the chemistry versus biology piece. So why is the recommendation to take chemistry as a freshman instead of biology, especially if we need to take both of those at some point?
It's a great question. One, chemistry is a prereq for some of the biology coursework. Second, and this is probably why I think the majority of students are going to start with chemistry, is that it is a slightly longer sequence. And so there are more chemistry courses that you'll need to take than biology. So when we're thinking about balancing those two labs for your first semester, particularly, we know that you're going to need a little bit more time to get through the chemistry sequence, and then you're going to have that math course that's going to have a lab. And so you'll have enough time to still have biology if you wait a semester or a year, and just because there's actually less of them.
Great, thank you. This next question here is around international students. So are there specific things that international students should be aware of when applying to medical schools here in the US? And by the same token, experiences that happen abroad that you bring back to the United States, how does that impact candidacy for med school or other applications?
Okay, I hate this question because I feel so bad what the answer is, but it's not my answer, it's the reality. It is very difficult to get accepted to a US medical school if you are here studying on a visa. And there's both financial implications as well as just admissibility. A lot of the state schools won't even look at you and consider you. There is we'll have to get on our website. I used to send everybody to another college that kept a good list, but the AAMC does have a good list of schools in the US that will consider international student applicants. Sometimes those that say yes, it's with a little asterisk and it's a very narrow population, so you have to read really carefully. So it is difficult to get admitted if you are not a US citizen or green card holder. Not impossible. Part of what makes it difficult is at schools like Duke and Yale, highly competitive, highly selective schools they're private, so they're able to admit the greatest numbers of international students. So you have to do really, really well. Fortunately, there are a variety of schools around the world that are on a US-based undergraduate model with 4 years of medical school to follow. Duke NUS in Singapore for students who are from Asia and really have strong research backgrounds can be a good option. But we can also advise you about other global options as well. There is a wonderful resource that's for students that studied on F1 visas, mentoring other students who are in a similar situation. It's called F1 Doctors. I would get on that website, build some connections, because those are the people that are going to be able to tell you, yes, you can. Here's how I did it in a lot more detail than anyone on my team will be able to do. But that's what I would recommend. As far as doing things internationally, if you are applying to US schools, you are always going to need to do some things on US soil, in US context, because you are applying to schools and hopefully aspiring to be part of our health system. So you need to learn about it. Doing things internationally can be really great because seeing another health system and comparing it and contrasting with what's going on in the US is a wonderful way to represent you know more about the health system than you do. But you cannot apply to US medical schools and expect to be competitive without shadowing US physicians and volunteering in patient contexts here.
And I might just add that would be for international and domestic applicants. The international experience, sort of regardless of your residency.
And it's going to cause me to also say, avoid the pay to play options. There's lots of, pay thousands of dollars, shadow in a foreign country. Don't do those things. If they were neutral, we would have no problem. But medical schools see those things and think, oh, this is someone who is privileged and able to pay for access. That's not a fair playing ground for other applicants. And so you actually, they just don't look at them as positively as they might if it was a neutral choice. So there's plenty of ways to get started for free. Sometimes it's challenging, but definitely stick with it and don't pay for those kinds of opportunities.
All right, great. I know we have about 5 minutes left, so and we're definitely not going to get to everybody's questions before we wrap up here. So maybe just a couple more before we close out. The first one, there's been a couple questions about Math 105 in particular, because it's graded satisfactory, unsatisfactory. How does that look on med school applications? And yeah, what are our thoughts on it not being for a grade?
So most health professions programs, including medical schools, will need to see a course with a grade. But because Math 105 is part of a sequence, you're going to take 105 and 106. Most health professions programs are looking for at least one semester with a grade, and so it shouldn't be a huge issue because it's part of a sequence.
All right, great. That's very helpful. Thank you. Let's see, this one is, again, kind of looking pretty far down the road, but for a strong MCAT score, are there things that students could be doing throughout their 4 years here to get prepared for that, such as revisiting other pre-med classes, or what does the MCAT studying process look like? What do you recommend maybe?
Yeah, it's 3 months, 300 hours minimum preparation. So it is a big commitment. Some students find that TAing, tutoring, facilitating learning groups for other students. We always have a shortage of those folks willing to do that. It's a great way to review content. And when you got to teach it, you got to know it at a deeper level. But I think probably the best thing to prepare for the MCAT is if you are in trouble in classes early, don't do well on a test, have questions, don't feel like you're understanding it, go and get help early and often. We spend probably millions of undergraduate dollars in tuition on academic resource, group tutorial, people to support you, peer guides. There's just a huge number of people that are here and willing to help you. But you've got to be the one that is vulnerable and willing to go ask for that help. And I'll just acknowledge everybody coming to Duke, y'all have been the tutors, you've been the helpers. You have not been in this position before, but we're going to stretch you and we're going to ask a lot of you academically. So don't be afraid to go ask for that help because it really will turn things around. And if you build solid foundation in these classes and understand the content, then it's really just going to be a matter of review and not learning stuff for the MCAT. And we'll talk about all the details about MCAT prep beyond that in another workshop. But we got you covered.
All right, great. So I think before we close out, I'll just wrap up by saying if your question wasn't answered, which there's a lot of you, your ways to reach the pre-health advising is either emailing prehealth@duke.edu. Otherwise, you should definitely scan this QR code and get on the mailing list and come to one of the drop-in hours that are happening on Friday, right? Friday the 26th, and then next Tuesday the 30th. So those will be great chances for you to ask and get answers to your individual questions. And I think before we close it, maybe we'll just end with one final piece of advice from the two of you, maybe things that a student who's graduating says, I wish I would have known this as a freshman. Like, what's a big misconception? This is your chance to clear the air and end on a high note with all of the students we have in attendance here.
Work with us from the beginning. Don't work with us when you think you need us. Come figure it out, and do not let a low grade or something you're worried about keep you away. If you have worries on this path, that's a sign you need to come talk to us. This is just the beginning of our work with you, so we're really excited about seeing you and working with you down the road.
I mean, I would echo that. I think the number one thing we hear is, I wish I would have asked for help sooner. I wish I would have met with you sooner. I wish I would have explored sooner. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all so much again for taking the time out of your busy day to meet with all of us here. Like I said, I know we didn't get to a lot of questions, but there's opportunities to get those answered. So once again, thank you all for being here. We look forward to seeing you at the Pre-Health Drop-In Advising, as well as at our next webinar, Duke Community Standards Res Life Policies, which will also be next Tuesday. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your days, and we'll be seeing you later.